how do you get more members? That's not an easy answer. If it was, everybody would be doing it. The number one thing is people. So you know, certainly we believe in putting our personal trainers and actually our Group X team as well at the center of what we do, so everyone's employed. Whereas I've worked in businesses before where those experts are freelancers and they feel like they're on the outskirts. So by putting them at the center of who we are and, if you like, uplifting them and making them feel important, you get a virtuous cycle of then you attract better and better PTs and Group X instructors.
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. Our guest today has racked up more than 20 years of experience directing the fitness programs for some of the best known high-end fitness operators, including Holmes Place, Virgin Active, David Lloyd and Aspria. He is currently the fitness director for the Third Space, which is a collection of high-end luxury health clubs in London that strive to provide outstanding fitness spaces with state-of-the-art amenities. Today in our interview, he shares his thoughts on what it takes to attract the best personal trainers in the world and the knowledge and mindset they need to succeed and be qualified to work at the Third Space. How premium operators are adapting their gym floor design to serve the changing needs of their clients. And what new health, wellness and recovery trends does he predict will be popular in the next couple of years? So please welcome the fitness director of the Third Space, Mr. Rob Beale.
Mr. Rob Beale.
Hello.
Thanks for coming to Peterborough, centre of the universe.
Absolutely, it's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while. The place looks great, actually.
Yeah, we're in our new innovation centre.
Yeah, marvellous.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking me.
That's good. So
I've been waiting.
Yeah. And I asked you before we started, I said, like, is there anything that's off bounds? And as you know, you mentioned you listen to the podcast, and I thought, you know, just to open the question, and I know you're into your health and fitness, but are you drinking urine or doing ayahuasca yet?
Neither of those. Not yet.
Not yet.
Until it's is even a suggestion that'll help.
Right. Okay. Very good. But I thought it'd be good to start. Like normally, I want to get onto, you know, what you're doing in the industry and Third Space and stuff like that. But I thought for a change, we'd start off on the workout side, because I know we go back many years.
We do. Yeah.
And I know you've sort of been very into your fitness. So what's your fitness routine looking like now then?
It's pretty structured, actually. I've always had like a very structured approach to my training. So back in the day, it would have been like a 4-day split body parts. Now it's much more sort of full body focus. So I'm fortunate that I have a personal trainer in Third Space, best personal training product in the world. So Monday and Wednesdays PT sessions, very structured program. Tuesday evenings CrossFit, where I live in Hove on the south coast of England. Fridays CrossFit, Saturday mornings CrossFit. So those are my 5 quite structured sessions, if you like. Bit of an R&R in between, yoga, Pilates, Tuesday, Thursdays, Sunday, either bit of steady state or completely chill out.
Right.
And I don't move too far away from that structure. I like lifting weights, that's kind of, you know, if I had to choose between being a sprinter and a marathon runner, it would definitely be a sprinter. So it's, you know, weight training, short bursts, that's kind of what I enjoy doing. But
right.
I think what's really evolved in my training, I'd say in the last 10 years, and it happens to all of us as we get older, is I've found more time for the, I guess, R&R stuff. So yoga, Pilates, you have to work harder to be able to perform in my strength workouts these days. And I find I need to purposely add in, if you like, recovery sessions rather than just hope I recover.
So how do you feel, like, I don't know whether it's just me, but what do you like in between sessions in terms of aching, mobility? Do you find that, are you fine on that, or do you find that putting in like the yoga and that sort of thing helps you just move better in between sessions and during workouts and stuff at all? Or has that not hit you yet?
No, it definitely has. So there's 2 ways to answer that. The first is, so I'm 46 now, and when I joined Third Space I was 41, and I was kind of coming to the conclusion that I might have to sort of admit the fact that I had to slow down. But actually, since I've worked with our Third Space personal trainers, who are very smart, high-end personal trainers who can construct proper programs that mean you don't, you know, kind of overtrain, I've been able to, if you like, increase my output, increase my performance, and train more often than I could when, let's say, I was 41. However, you know, I'm not 26 anymore, I'm 46, and I definitely need to add in structured almost recovery sessions. And if I stop doing that, if I don't foam roll, if I don't mobilize, if I don't movement prep properly, my body usually pays the price for it. So I've definitely found with age, I've had to put in those sessions. The thing we'll never know, of course, is if I'd put in those sessions in my 20s and 30s, who know what I could have achieved. So, I feel like I'm training smarter now than I ever have, but I also probably need to, just because I'm getting slightly older.
Right. Yeah. I've noticed that I never ever used to warm up, only because I didn't see the value in it, stupidly, and I didn't feel as though my body needed to do it.
Yeah.
Now it's just, if I don't do it, I'm going to injure myself because I'm just not moving correctly. You know, my body's tight in different areas, and I guess that's an interesting thing. Like when you're younger, you don't need to do it, but as you said, are you basically creating problems later on in life? And a lot of times, I guess, until you sort of feel the pain, you don't actually realize you've got a problem, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could wind the clock back, but to give my younger self some advice. But it sounds like we're quite similar. I mean, my warm up was always a 5-minute rower and then straight into whatever it would be. Heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, bench press. Whereas these days, it's a solid 15-20 minutes of movement prep, myofascial release, banded work, priming before I hit that first set. And as a result, I think I'm able to perform better in what I'd call the main block. Who knows what effect that type of training approach would have had on my, when I was playing rugby, for example, in my university days.
Yeah.
So there's a balance of maybe I didn't need it then, but at the same time, if we think about professional athletes, whether they're rugby players, soccer players, they would be definitely doing the movement prep that I wasn't doing when I was their age, and I'm sure they're benefiting from it.
Yeah. I was doing, we talked about Paul Check earlier, and I went to see him because I've had back injuries, and he's been showing me some interesting stuff on the ball. And again, when I was younger, probably 15 years ago, it was very much weights, and if I did ball stuff, it was like with some really heavy dumbbells, just to, but I didn't really use it from a functional perspective and to get everything firing correctly. And I found using the ball, again, having a session where it's predominantly movement based and functional type of exercises, which I probably wouldn't have found time for before, really makes a huge difference. I thought I was pretty strong in that in the core, and until they put me on some of these things, and I found how weak I was. I thought I had really good glutes until, again, sort of realized I weren't, my glutes weren't activating exactly correctly. So I think it's, it's trying to figure out how you can recognize what a good workout is when you need to, so that as you get older, you're in a good position. And
also your priorities change. Well, mine certainly have. It was, being absolutely honest, in my 20s and even into maybe my early 30s, it was mostly an aesthetic pursuit and a pursuit of what's the absolute most I could lift for one rep. That was, if I really reflect back, that's where it was.
Maximum weight.
Pretty much, just it was all about aesthetics and lifting heavy. Whereas now, our philosophy at Third Space is move better, feel better, perform better, and I'm much more focused now on just being a better athlete. And by athlete, I don't mean, like an Olympic athlete, because obviously I'm not, but I just mean, like a rounded person who can do different things, whether that's snowboarding, whether it's surfing, whether it's CrossFit, whether it's going for a run, and just being able to do those things without feeling it too much, without really paying the price. And that's where it's mostly at for me now.
Do you think some of that is through education? Like, I try and think about it at the time. Do you think it's more like stage of life, and that is the main goal at that stage, or do you think some of it's education to actually realize, all right, well, you can be like this super athlete in life and in business, but in order to do that, you need your recovery, you need your strength workout, you need your cardio. What do you think that is for you?
I think for me, it's mostly education. So I suspect if I'd stayed in Swansea and not moved to London in my mid-20s and got into the fitness industry, I suspect my training right now would be similar to my other friends that are still in Swansea, which is just a 3-day sort of bro split. And but because I'm obviously incredibly lucky to be surrounded by if you like, the fitness industry with all of the information that feeds in, then I've kind of got all the information I need then to inspire me to, if you like, to knit that all together into something a bit more cohesive, well-rounded. So, you know, if you're in the industry, you're just fortunate that you're getting all the best advice, either directly or indirectly. So I think for me, it's probably more that.
Introducing the next big thing in functional training, the Escape Barrow, a revolutionary training tool that combines a loaded farmer's carry with a sled push to develop hip, grip, and core strength. Developed in partnership with Pete Holman, inventor of the TRX Rip Trainer and Nautilus Glute Drive, the Escape Barrow can be rolled, pushed, dragged and carried. The Escape Barrow packs a punch with an impressive load capacity of 440 pounds, and with a two-stage galvanized paint covering process, it's also ideal for outdoor use. So head over to escapefitness.com/barrow. That's escapefitness.com/barrow to find out more. Enjoy the rest of this episode.
Why do you use personal trainer? Because I've been on workshops with you. You must be very well educated on how to train and what to eat, etc. But so why do you choose to use a personal trainer? Is it motivation, or are you learning things, or are you getting something that because I don't use a trainer, and you know, I've thought about it a lot, but interested in your views on that.
Yeah, so look, thanks for it's somewhere in there, there's a compliment, which is I probably know what I'm doing, and I do. But you know, it's a chance I wouldn't get a job with Third Space as a personal trainer. That if you're not, if that's not what you do all day, every day, then you can't be an expert at it. Our personal trainers are certainly amongst the best personal trainers in London and the UK. They're living and breathing it. They're completely up to date with everything. So therefore, they're frankly, Matt, they're far better personal trainers than I am. They're more up to speed on the absolute latest, you know, structured programs to do than I am. So that's one thing. The second thing, though, and I think this is almost the number one thing that one gets from a personal trainer, just accountability. So it's this idea of someone's writing me a program, and I'm accountable to them the next week on whether I've delivered on the promise I've made to them to do that program. And that almost, at least for me, almost guarantees that I do it. And then the very last bit is in the session itself, and I have 2 personal training sessions a week. Our PTs are definitely able to push me harder in that session than I'm able to push myself. There's just no question about that. I don't know. You know, you do your own training, and it's varied because you know, I can see what you've been doing, but there must be a sense of you're still choosing the stuff that you want to do, right? So that you can, you know, I find for me anyway, I can easily slip into just doing the exercises that I like doing, and therefore I'd never do a Metcon that involved the Versa climber with some hill sprints, as an example. Whereas my PT will occasionally throw something in, and I go, God, really? So we had 4 minutes left at the end of our session on Monday because the main block took a little longer, and I thought, oh, we're done now. You know, she'll let me kind of finish the session, and it was, no, we're going to do 4 chin-ups, 4 burpees for 4 minutes, as many rounds as possible. And like, right. So it was just an example of me, you know, kind of being pushed beyond what I would definitely push myself.
Yeah, you've made me think about it, because I've sort of gone back and forth on this, and sometimes for me, workout's quite therapeutic.
Sure.
It's just like I just want to turn off and I move and think, and it's just an escape from everything that's going on. But sometimes I think you're right. Like, there's definitely, when I've had trainers, they get me to do things I would never think of myself in a lot of cases. And although I do feel if I want, I push myself. I suppose when you look at it completely, they'll probably push me in so many different areas I wouldn't do myself. And as a result then, like, what would you say do you get from, so in terms of results, what are you getting from that? Is it just, what do you get from it then?
I mean, the main result's performance.
Right.
So yeah, I'm stronger than I've not ever been. I mean, when I was 20 years ago when I was playing rugby in university, I would have been a bit stronger than now, but I would have also been a good 5-6 kilos heavier. But certainly versus the last 15 years, I'm stronger than I've ever been. I'm able to do movements that I wasn't able to do then, particularly things that involve mobility. And I'm much more resilient to injury. So for example, I loved snowboarding, but I'd always pay for it when I came back with, a groin injury that would then niggle me for months afterwards. Or if I surfed, my internal rotators would hurt for days afterwards, that kind of thing. Whereas now that's really not the case. It's touch wood. it's almost that I've been given a program that's enabled me to do those things without suffering the consequence from it. So it's mostly around performance, I'd say. I mean, I'm relatively happy with my, let's call it body composition, that give or take kind of where I want it to be. But it's the performance side of things, certainly.
I think one of the things about the fitness industry is I obviously if you're at your level and having a personal trainer, it's great. But I also think people like my parents and that type of area where when they go to a gym, most people don't have a clue what to do.
No.
Like, again, I put you in the category. You're probably in the top category, even though you probably couldn't be a personal trainer, as you say. You're probably more knowledgeable than 95% or maybe even 99% of the population that are thinking about working out. And I sort of think, well, what do they do? And it's almost like maybe that's why the sort of fitness space isn't getting as many people in, because most people's experience, they go to a gym, they have a bit of an assessment, get given a program, and then that's it. They're kind of in there every week, and there's almost like no hope for them, really. Would you agree?
Yeah, look, I'm with you. I was talking to one of our fitness managers just yesterday, and he's one of our newer fitness managers, and I was, kind of discussing almost philosophy around what sort of team he's trying to create. And my take on it is that the best gym in the world is a gym where all of the members in that gym are getting the results that they came into it for. And as you know, that's rare. It's most members in most facilities aren't getting results for a whole range of reasons. They're not coming in often enough. When they are coming in, they're not doing the right exercises in the right combination at the right tempo with the right rest. Even if they are, they're probably doing that, let's call it a program, for too long, and then they're plateauing. So what I was, I guess, kind of talking to him about was almost the only way to ensure that all of the members are getting results is at some stage they have a personal trainer. So I 100% believe that a good personal trainer can train someone for 3 months, 6 months, and teach them how to train effectively for the rest of their life. And I guess that's one of the reasons that I'm still heavily involved in that particular part of the fitness industry, personal training, and of course, obviously the gyms and studios that takes place in, because the environment has a big impact on whether the member's inspired or not to commit. But I passionately believe that everyone should have a personal trainer at some point in their life. And I kind of believe that, 100% with my heart.
How do you do that as a business then? Because I guess, and I don't know the numbers, but from what I've been told, it typically goes from sort of on a super high end 20% and down to sort of 10%. It's definitely not 50% of people.
No.
How do you then try and get more people into that when really it's the best way for them to work out and get results? And I totally agree with that. And I totally get why the opposite means that people are not going to stick and not going to get any results. But it's people don't all use a personal trainer, do they?
No, I think the stats there, and it's certainly in the UK, anywhere between 3% and best case scenario maybe 25% of members doing PT, and we're nearer the higher end of that, as you can imagine, because of where we are and who we are, and we're proud of the personal training business we've built. So the answer to your question is, how do you get more members? That's not an easy answer. If it was, everybody would be doing it. The number one thing is people. So certainly we believe in putting our personal trainers and actually our Group X team as well at the center of what we do, so everyone's employed. whereas I've worked in businesses before where those experts are freelancers and they feel like they're on the outskirts. So by putting them at the center of who we are and, if you like, uplifting them and making them feel important, you get a virtuous cycle of then you attract better and better PTs and Group X instructors. So it's mostly about having the best people who can inspire members and who can attract clients towards them. But you also have to have environments that, if you like, inspire the members to want to train with a personal trainer as well. So
how would you define an environment then?
Well, it's a mixture of obviously the equipment you have in the facility, how it's laid out, lighting, flooring, ambience, not just in the gym, but in the studios, at the concierge, in the changing rooms. So certainly at Third Space, we're proud of how we knit all of that together to create, if you like, an environment where the member wants to be their personal best, and our vision is to inspire members to be their personal best and to make it their third space. So I think you have to put a lot of time and effort into creating that to give yourself a chance of hitting the sort of penetration levels we're talking about. The other thing I'm really passionate about, always have been, whether it was when I did a similar role at Holmes Place or Lloyd Leisure back in the day, is education. So I think personal trainers in particular, but Group X as well, need a structured pathway to grow, where education is linked in to pay and reward and recognition. So that's something I've been always very passionate about, and we've got our academy, which we think anyway is certainly the best PT education of any operator. The main difference with being at Third Space, first and foremost, is it's where we are and who we are. So we're in the centre of London. We're at the very, very top of the market in terms of premium luxury. So to some extent, it's easier because we're just able to attract the best person. Generally speaking, the best personal trainers are in London. Now that's not. I mean, in the UK, of course there are amazing personal trainers outside, but generally speaking,
there's a density.
Yeah, there is. So it's hard. It's easier, for example, to find a world-class personal trainer for our Mayfair club than it was when I was at David Lloyd for our Stevenage club. It's just because. So there's that. There's the brand. There's the fact that we're able to pay well. So all of those things make it, frankly, slightly easier to build this absolute world-class personal training business. The challenge, obviously, is that the value the member and the client receives has to match the promise. It has to be excellent. It really does. And a typical Third Space personal training client has had personal training before. So they know what good looks like, and they'll very quickly spot anything less than 5-star, whether that's technically in terms of what they're being asked to do, whether it's in the way the personal trainer communicates. A lot of our PT clients will have PAs that the PT will be dealing with to book the sessions in, for example. So you need personal trainers who are mature enough and have sophisticated communication skills. So, none of our trainers are straight off like a PT course.
Right.
All of our personal trainers will have been personal trainers for several years before coming to us. Right. Just because that's what's required, really.
Right. And what's now expected from a personal trainer in terms of how they round out their education? Is it, I suppose, once you get your PT course, where would some of your trainers expect to be developing themselves? What areas? Obviously, you mentioned their sort of personal communication skills is an important thing, which I would agree. But what else makes a great trainer in your eyes?
Yeah, there's a few elements to that, Matt. I think there's obviously if we look at the different almost fitness components. So to be a successful personal trainer, certainly in London, you need a really solid foundation in strength and conditioning, functional anatomy and biomechanics. And most of that doesn't come from doing a whatever it would be, a 2-week, 3-week, 4-week PT course. You know, there's some extra learning needed, whether that's a degree, whether that's a master's, whether that's going and doing Mike Boyle strength and conditioning, whether it's going to do Michael Goulden RTS. So there's an element of, we're expecting the PTs that join us to have invested in their own education around those sort of almost core fitness components. The next bit is you touched on is communication. That links to the PT's ability to coach. So let's imagine I was your PT client. Part of what I need from you is tell me what exercises to do and tell me what order to do them in and what tempo and what rest and all of those things. But probably what I also need is for you to help me change my behaviors. You know, there's this element of, you need to coach me to stop doing some things, to start doing some things. There's almost like an NLP element to that. And I think the modern personal trainer needs to be a coach, which the difference for me between a coach and a trainer is a trainer tells the client what to do. And of course, there are moments when that's absolutely necessary, whereas a coach asks the client what they think they should be doing and involves them in the process. And for the most part, most of our members want to be involved in the process. They're educated people. They're nearly always fairly successful in other areas of their life. So for the most part, they're not going to come in and just be told what to do and follow it blindly. So that ability for the PT to coach, to change behaviors, we're seeing a big sort of, what's the word, focus now on mental health, resilience. How do you as a personal trainer help me run my life? What's my sleep like? What's my nutrition like? So to some extent, PT's acting as a hub and arming the client with the information they need to run their life. So it's not enough just to come in, deliver an hour's worth of exercise and I'll see you next week. So I think all of that ties into what a great personal trainer looks like, whether that's for Third Space or for anyone. And I still think the industry, in terms of developing personal trainers that can do all that, you know, the industry's a long way away from it.
Do you see things changing as well? We've had a conversation about recovery, and that very much seems as though it's still very new. Even how do you sort of build recovery into spaces? I've been to a number of clubs and people are trying to do different things, and boutiques that are doing it. But when I sort of ask them, well, how have they put stuff together and what's the education like? It's a lot of people are just still figuring it out themselves. You know, it's not like a place to go. Well, there's not many places to go that will tell you exactly what to do. And then I guess from a trainer's perspective, they've got to figure out, okay, well, when do I recommend, or how do I sort of interpret what else that you're doing in your life? So it sounds like it's, you know, there's a whole new level of education that has got to be sort of put together. So how are you, or how are, in your experience, some of the trainers looking at things that you got from your Whoop and you know, the recovery procedures that they're going through to figure out how to sort of bring that back together again?
Yeah, you're right. Of course, it feels like it's almost a new facet that just people weren't talking about HRV and, you know, whether it's Hyperice or Theragun even 5 years ago, maybe, right? So this whole focus on meditation, mental health, breath work, yeah. Absolutely, ice baths, that's relatively new, and of course our members are aware of it, and they'll have information they've got from who knows where, from social, from YouTube, from an Amazon documentary, from Netflix. So they come to us asking about things. So our PTs have to be informed on it, because if the member's more informed than the PT, you know, you've got some issues. So we from a physical area, we have recovery rooms in some of our clubs now. We partner with Hyperice who do our you know, the Hypervolt and the recovery devices. That's in every club, and that's part of the service. And certainly our personal trainers, when they're training their clients or when they're onboarding members, will knit those things together as part of the program. So whether that's before or after, and they'll if you like, they'll plot those into the member's program so the member understands what, why and what. Whether the member then adheres to that, that's a little bit hit and miss. It's easier if it's a regular PT client because the PT can, to some extent, continue to coach and influence and change behaviours and ask the question like, how are your shoulders feeling today, Rob? Yeah, they're sore. Oh, have you used your gun this week? No. Oh, right. Don't forget you said you were going to, didn't you? Yes, I did. Okay. So there's a little bit of that. But for the member to fit these extra things into the day is challenging. It's you know, sometimes the member just wants to sit on the sofa and watch Netflix and not foam roll and mobilize their shoulders to make sure they can perform well the next day.
I had this conversation a few weeks ago, and I'd be interested in how you see it. But I guess when I remember I used to come up to Hatfield when you was over there, have chats about different things, and obviously that was very pre-internet, predominantly. We had email and websites, but it was very different times to what it is today. And I suppose when you're in that type of role, the club and the trainer have the keys to the knowledge in most cases. You go to some of the big conventions and you learn from some of these top people, and very few people have access to this. Nowadays, they can listen to a podcast from someone like Andrew Huberman or whatever, and almost sort of absorb all this information and then come to their trainer and it's, what about this? How are you guys dealing with this sort of power member that probably consumes all this stuff and then is now laying it on you to explain something?
No, it's difficult. I mean, I think it's the metaphor of your average 14-year-old in Africa now has access to more information than the US president did in 2000. So it's that kind of knowledge is power, and within reason, we've all got access to it, right? I mean, you can almost read anything, learn how to do anything now, and we get a lot of that, and it's up to us to guide our trainers on what's based on science, what's a fad, but also for our trainers to work it out themselves. If you've got good enough people working for you, you have to then trust them to make those judgments. So we're very careful not to put too many constraints and rules on our trainers and say, these are 10 things you absolutely can't agree with, and here are 6 things you have to, it's more about trying to give our trainers the tools to be up to date so that they're at least aware of some of the things you're alluding to. For our clients, they will more often than not trust the trainer. So what we're all looking for are quick, easy hacks. But the truth is that, for example, using a hypervolt to reduce your soreness isn't much use if you're only sleeping 5 hours a night. So I still think the basics are still the basics, Matt. It's progressive overload, making sure you get some steady state CV in to improve your VO2 max, which is a big sort of correlation between that and length of life. Making sure you're doing some mobility and flexibility, getting 8 hours sleep, eating 5. The basics are still the basics. The other things are, if you're doing those things well, yes, let's consider these things. And I think we're pretty good at helping our members see through the myriad of data and fads and giving them the right tools. But of course, if you've got 25,000 members, they're all going to make their own individual decisions as well.
I think that's also the hard part. As I've been doing these podcasts, you start to realize, look, and Paul Check mentioned it to me, it's like, look, you want to stay away from these hacks because that's what they are. And at some point, something in the system is going to give because it's not really designed. Things take a long time, building muscle, getting fit, you got to put the work. There's no hack. Eating good food, there's no hack.
I listened to that podcast and found myself agreeing with most of it.
But it's trying to sort of deal with the, with big, I suppose, having big names or people with big followings in some cases. I don't know how you feel about this, but there's, some people who have big followings don't necessarily have all of the, in some cases, don't necessarily have a lot of background in some of this stuff, and yet you have. We talked about it at Connected Fitness Summit, and you have some really good brands and great trainers where their focus isn't being on social media, and yet they have they know what they're doing, and it's trying to sort of explain to people, well, okay, yeah, just because they don't necessarily have the voice, sometimes they may be a better option for you, but it's difficult because I suppose the decision between, well, who do you choose if you've got this person that seems to have this awareness and credibility, or this attention, that would be the better choice. In some cases, maybe not.
Oh, absolutely. It's the age of the influencer, I suppose. A lot of influencers do a lot of great work, and they generally speaking, what they're doing is connecting with people that, to some extent, the fitness industry haven't been able to connect with, right? Let's be honest about that. But some of the advice is sketchy, isn't it? So,
how do you feel about connecting? Because I one of the ideas I was thinking through is connecting the sort of the eyeballs with the credibility, and almost like partnerships. So do you guys do much from in terms of working with influencers that do have some of those?
Not lots.
Right.
No, it's I'll give you an example. If we've got an influencer that's a member and really likes us, and we think they're, let's say, on brand, as in they're real, and they're generally talking about things that we agree with, we might do some work with them. But what we won't do is, I don't know, pay someone to be a Third Space member who doesn't really know us just because they've got a big following. That's how we go about it. Our if you like, our social media is almost all organic. It's real. It is, and we've generally stayed away from that sort of thing.
Yeah. I was interested to know, like, I go back a long way with Third Space. I remember, I don't know if you know, do you remember Chris St. George?
Yes, a long time ago.
Yeah, so he I think he was involved in opening the club, and I actually went to the Soho location. I don't know who owned it then, but I climbed up the stairs when it was being built, and so I know the brand a lot, and it's quite impressive that the club itself, particularly the one in Soho. How many years old must that be now? Must be nearly 20.
20 years.
20 years old. I walked by there. We arrived in London the other day. Walked by there the other day, and it's still, from the outside, as cool looking as it was 20 years ago. And being in business myself for 25 years, and seeing a lot of companies that have gone, that were around when we started, that are no longer around, many of them, particularly in London, very different scene. It's very impressive how they've been able to maintain that sort of prestige, the quality, the innovation in terms of what they do, and they've gone through so many different changes. The big box, the budgets, the boutiques, and everything, and yet they're still in London up there with the best in the world. What would you say and you must have known them as a competitor?
Absolutely. I can remember, working for Holmes Place, for example.
Right.
What would that have been, 2002, 2003, and going to visit that club when I first moved to London to just see what it was all about, and they were, the club that Harry and Will's trained at, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I remember it well.
What do you think has been the ingredients, as now being on the inside, that have allowed that consistency over a long time, regardless, and being able to protect that position with everything that's been going on around it?
Yeah, I've heard our CEO Colin say this a couple of times recently, which is, if you've got the right strategy, it gives you the possibility of success, and if you've got the right people, it gives you the probability of success. And the strategy's been very good. So we came to the conclusion fairly early that where we needed to go was premium luxury, not premium to mid-market to premium. We made that decision, very early on. And if you want to be the best health club in the world, which is what our mission is, then you have to invest. You have to invest in those facilities. So I've worked for different brands, be that Holmes Place, as I just referred to, that lost sight of that. I mean, to some extent, Matt, Holmes Place 2002, 2003 was the third space. Now it was, it was a very, for its time, it was the premium brand in London, 30 odd gyms. It was where one went. But, that certainly that UK business lost sight of that and started underinvesting. And before you know it, you're in a vicious cycle. And we've been very good at not doing that and really investing and in everything from the nicest lockers to the nicest changing rooms to the best treadmills to the best free weights and so on and so forth. So that's been key, the right strategy. But we've also had if you like, a people strategy that's really, really focused on recruiting good talent and paying well, and investing a lot of time in them. So a lot of our general managers now have come right through, from even the concierge team or from lifeguards. So it's you then got this hopefully unique environment of world-class facilities, highly committed, passionate, and bright people working for you, which hopefully creates a space where just members want to come. And of course, if you've got that, then it's then actually relatively easy to maintain, because you get a great reputation, and then your typical Londoner, if they really want to invest in their health and fitness, that they'll and they're near a third space club, they'll choose third space.
Right. You said don't ask about the 15th location. Is that the next number? But
no, it's not. We're on 8 at the moment.
On 8, okay.
Yeah. Moorgate was Club 8.
Club 8, okay. Yeah. So my guess is with that type of model, though, it's not like you can just sort of expand across the UK. There must be sort of limitations to that in some respect, is it?
I think so. So I don't think I'm saying anything confidential when I say that our focus is London.
Right.
You probably know this, answer this better than I do, but I think Equinox have got 30 plus gyms in New York. I mean, I'm not saying we'll have 30. I've done, but there's a lot of scope in London for premium luxury health clubs that can give people what they really want, not just a bit of what they want. So our next club, Club 9, is Wimbledon,
okay,
which opens later this year. So that wouldn't, 10 years ago, that probably wouldn't have been a place where a premium health club would have gone, because you'd have worried about, is there the demographic there in terms of the volume of people? But it's not 10 years ago, it's post-pandemic and things have changed.
Well, with that, I'm always curious, because I suppose when you think about the membership, and you don't have to share exactly what it is, but I've got, I can guess roughly, how much a membership is going to be at a third space compared to anyone else, and it's, I'm sure it's going to be more expensive. But in the scheme of things, looking at, we went out for dinner in a reasonable restaurant, 4 people, a couple of £100.
Mm-hmm.
So when you compare a monthly membership to something that has such an impact on people's lives, like obviously for you, probably the changes are relatively minimal, but for someone who's not worked out, getting involved in a good trainer, it could be life-changing. They could extend their life by an amazing amount, improve the quality of life, everything. So it's still relatively inexpensive when you compare it to the benefits. Do you think in some ways, though, that we, and I'm not relating this to sort of third space, but do you think in some ways like the fitness industry is becoming a little bit unnecessarily commoditized in terms of what it actually does for you?
Yeah, look, I understand the nature of the question. Generally speaking, we, the industry, have sold fitness at a very low price versus the benefit you get from it. You just compared the restaurant. You could go on a holiday for a week with the family. It could cost you $5,000, right? And that's, whilst that week is, a great experience, that's not going to give you the same value as several years of being a member of a great health club where you're going lots of times a week and ensuring your quality and quantity of life is better, right? So I think generally speaking, we've undersold it. But part of the reason for that, by we, by the way, I mean the industry, is that generally speaking, we've been unable to follow through on our promise to get the member the results and to get them to change their habits so they are coming regularly enough to get the benefits, right? So that's the challenge. And look, that's a challenge for third space as well, to get, there's still a correlation between usage and value for money. If you're using the club regularly, you're probably getting value for money. If you're not, you're not. So it's really about focusing on enabling the member to, making it frictionless, making it easy for them, hopefully making them feel that it's a place that they do feel comfortable in. There's maybe this perception that because we're luxury and premium, that it's a might be an environment some people feel a little bit uncomfortable in, but we certainly don't see that. I don't think I've ever had a bit of member feedback that alluded to that. It's it's quite personalised, it's quite simplified, and I think that helps.
Yeah, I see. I remember when I went into the one in Soho when it first opened, they had I think they called it a medical centre upstairs.
Still that, yeah, third space medical. Yeah.
Right. And one of the things that I'm seeing is a link now, a lot more, you're seeing these concepts where it's fitness and medical, and I can imagine in the future, and when you're looking at this recovery space as well, and you've got the IVs and all those things, it almost is starting to become one thing. And again, something that you guys are doing for a long time. And I suppose when you say like, okay, we've undersold it, we're not delivering on promises, do you think as the industry sort of matures a little bit, that the messaging may need to change? And I get I've had people argue with me to say, well, it's a good thing if we can entertain people, get people off the couch, it gets them into fitness, which may be right. I'd also challenge some people to say, well, yeah, but if you stuck my mum on a treadmill, doing a HIIT class, then she's probably better off not even going in there, because someone's going to have to undo the damage that we've done. But what do you think about, how could we be positioning ourselves? What should be the message? Should we be more moving towards this sort of health medical element or preventative medical, or is it a case of, look, anybody that gets into it is a good thing, and we just need to continue to do whatever we need to do to get bums on seats?
Yeah, I think, look, different brands mean different things to different consumer groups. So, we talked a little bit about when I was in my 20s versus 30s versus now. I wouldn't have wanted to have listened to if you train like this, you'll live longer message in my 20s, because it's just not on your radar map, but when you're that age, is it? So I think it really depends on who you are as a brand. So if I don't know, if my consumer age group is 20 to 30, then I'm probably selling fun and excitement and aesthetics and looking great and that kind of thing. As you get into older populations, it's much more about quality of life, mental health, living longer, being able to play with your kids, and definitely a focus on health versus fitness and performance, probably. But in saying that, there's like 60 is the new 40. It won't be too far along before I'm 50, and I don't, I can remember being at David Lloyd in 2007 where we had over 50s classes.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's not me.
No, absolutely, but it's changed, hasn't it? Yeah. You can be 50, 60, even 70 now and still be, an athlete, right? So we have to recognize that. And I think it also depends where the facility is. Again, if you're in the centre of London versus in Worthing on the south coast where it's an older population, then you'll have a different brand. But to try and answer your question, I think for us to increase the percentage of the population in the UK, at least, that is a member of Health Club. I think at the moment it's 15%. We're going to need to tap into the health agenda more, I think. And that's going to, UK Active and so on, they're trying their best to get government to buy into that, preventative medicine, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't see us, the increase we've had from 12 to 15% has been mostly a function of the budgets. So that's, a lower cost alternative. There's an argument that extra 3%, because of the low cost, most of them aren't coming. So has it really made any difference, the amount of active people? So I think for us to get much north of 15% towards 2025, we're gonna have to tap into the health agenda.
And it's interesting you say about the younger demographic. Like we've had this YouTube channel for 5 years, and obviously you get some pretty good stats on who watches different videos and how content performs, etc. And one of the things that I feel sort of taps into that is like whenever we do anything that's more targeted to the sort of, me in my mid-20s, bodybuilding, building muscle and everything, whenever you talk, and it's predominantly males on this, but whenever we get into things like steroids and risks and all that kind of stuff, there's a massive, you're getting hundreds of thousands of views for that type of subject, and it kind of says to me, you kind of think that I always think, well, those when I was that age, I didn't need any help, I didn't need any advice. I was a bodybuilder when I was younger, and actually these guys do, and the people that, it's a lot of this bro science that they tend to follow, but it's almost like, well, those people probably can afford to pay more than 20 quid a week or whatever it is to go to a gym, because they're getting the gym for nothing and they're lifting weights and they're happy. But when it's like, well, what else do they need? Well, there's probably a lot, I know they're really interested in anything that's supplement related, proteins and vitamins and that sort of stuff. Performance enhancing drugs, the amount of kids, and I'm talking sort of probably, teens and 20s that take them. I did read something, it's ridiculous. A huge amount of people take some kind of drugs, even if they don't need them.
Oh, absolutely.
No education about that, like people are doing some serious damage. And you kind of think when it comes to the health agenda, it's like, okay, well, maybe there's, maybe you can kind of get some of this advice within some of these places. Because it's the same thing. Many of us did so much damage at that age because you listened to some bro in the gym. And it's like, shit, I wish someone would have pointed me in the right direction. Okay, this is how you get your goals, but here's some things you shouldn't do to get there.
No, I think it's a, I live locally down on the south coast, and occasionally I go to one of the budget gyms there, and everything you've just said, you can see it. I mean, the gym is mostly full of, I'd say 16 to 22-year-olds training badly, and definitely taking performance enhancing drugs, which I'm not even saying they shouldn't be doing those, but if you are doing them, you need to know what you're doing, right? You need to know what you're doing, and they definitely don't. They're just, it's the local guy giving them a box of whatever it is and advising them how many to take a day, and you're thinking, oh my God, it's I almost feel for them, because they only know what they know.
And I think, I know in America it's different. I don't know what it's like here now, but I suppose when you're men in particular, and then you get to that age where, okay, maybe people are thinking about testosterone supplementation. I don't think there's many. I don't think you've got those centers here. There's like in America they have these sort of hormone replacement type of setups where you can go and get testosterone with a doctor.
It's a completely different vibe to that in the UK. So I guess the first thing is that what we are definitely seeing, by the way, is I'm in this group, in men of 40 plus, they're now more aware that their testosterone might be lower than it was. So you're seeing the market doing things like Medi-checks and Thriver to regularly check bloods for vitamin deficiency, but also hormones. Where's my testosterone level at? Where's my free testosterone level at? How does that compare to the normal pop? So that is definitely a thing. And in Third Space, we're starting to embrace that and feed our clients into that data. I suppose.
Can they? Well, they can get checks and that within your facility.
They can't get checks within the facilities, but we can feed them to where to go to. What's really different in the UK versus the US in terms of then let's call it the interventions, is it's relatively easy in the US to get, let's call it hormone replacement therapy, testosterone. It's very difficult in the UK, very difficult. You'd have to have incredibly low testosterone as a male in the UK to get your doctor to prescribe it. And the UK's testosterone sort of, I'd say benchmark is lower than the US's. So it's so then what you tend to get is for those people that do want it tends to be black market.
Yeah.
So that's just the, if you like, the culture. In saying that, I don't know this to be true, by the way. My sense is the overwhelming majority of performance enhancement, whether that's straightforward testosterone or whatever it is, Dianabol or whatever it is in males sort of 18 through to 25, rather than this, ironically, the 45 to 55-year-old male probably needs a little bit of it. Not so much the Dianabol, by the way, but the actual testosterone just to help them, maintain a lean muscle mostly. That's the key to it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I know I'm not taking it, but I did an interview with a guy called Jeremy Brain. Well, I'm maybe that's the workout that kind of.
I also think, joking aside, if you've been training regularly forever, you're still benefiting from the lean muscle you created several years ago, aren't you? And it's easier to maintain lean muscle than it is to build when you're past a certain age, for sure.
And when, I've got people, friends that I know from school that are similar age, and obviously, I think the diet and the exercise combined, if you've not done that, you get to a certain age where you don't have much muscle mass, you're eating a bad diet, you're overweight, and that, I'm pretty sure that affects your natural testosterone levels.
But bound to be. Yeah, I think the so not too recently I went through my hormones and bloods. I do that about every 6 months because I like to know if I'm deficient in anything, basically, to make sure I'm controlling the variables. And the recommendations off the back of it are very straightforward. They're make sure you're doing A, B, C, D, and E, and I'm doing all of that. It's are you weight training 3 times a week? Are you eating a balanced diet? Making sure you're not eating too many starchy carbohydrates, because those are the things that will lower your testosterone. And there are people much better at explaining why that is than I am. Someone like Ollie Patrick, who you had on the podcast before, he'd give you chapter and verse on that sort of thing. But following a healthy lifestyle, a balanced diet, exercising regularly, there's so many benefits to it. We haven't got time to go through them, but what one of those is if you like, is a hormone balance that's optimal.
Do you think that also comes across? Like, I've never, when I think of joining, looking at joining the gym, those things, I never think about, and I'm explaining this from sort of, my knowledge from inside the industry and then as a consumer, but I never think about, how it affects, going to the gym is going to make a difference to my sex life. Going to the gym is going to make a difference to my performance as in a role as an executive or whatever. Going to the gym is going to increase, I know energy levels maybe, but some of the other things like we've just been talking about that people are probably dealing with that don't realize that the gym is an answer for that. And maybe they do then end up on, taking, getting hooked on certain medications, just making the whole thing even worse.
The best drug is activity and exercise, right? It's and they're looking for hacks, whatever that might be, and
in the pill form in some cases.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure the US is the same, but the kind of idea of, I've got this problem, okay, so here's this drug that will solve it. It's a version of what we were talking about earlier on, which is a quick hack. Whereas, I'm not saying it's the only solution, Matt, but regular exercise, healthy diet, not too much alcohol, etc., etc. Those are still the basics.
How do you see someone like Third Space incorporating the sort of this IV drip thing? I had a look. I've seen a few in London when I was there the other day, but I know again there's a lot of these franchises popping up now. I've been using them. I think they kind of have some cryo and barbaric. What is it called? Barbaric chambers?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
hyperbaric chambers. That's it. And then some sort of IVs. I've had mixed views on some of the stuff, but I certainly feel better when I come out. Is that something that you guys are thinking about, or do you see that as being a new trend?
We've looked at cryo, and we've got a cryo chamber in our city club, which is really popular. But we haven't got to the IV bit yet. So.
What are your thoughts on that?
Jury's out. I think it's pretty. What's the word? Be a big step. For us, I think it's still not. It's not widely accepted enough to be commercially viable for one. I don't think yet.
Right.
Like there's too few % of the population that would really see value in it. For us in our facilities, I mean, if you're setting up an IV only, let's call it clinic, with a very small footprint, and I could kind of see how that would work, because everyone that was interested would go there. So I'm not saying we won't go down that route, but it's not something we've looked at for our next club for certain.
No. Yeah. Oh, is it something you've tried?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. I'll have to chat to you off air, and you can give me chapter and verse on it. I am up for trying things that I think will improve my own performance, as long as they're safe, if that's the right word.
How do you see the market now? As we are today, in London, it seems that everybody's struggling for staff. Costs are going up. Yeah. Inflation. People don't have enough money. How would you summarise where the market is today?
Yeah, it's been challenging post-pandemic. Firstly, with recruitment, like the first half of last year, we found it incredibly difficult to recruit personal trainers, particularly because so many had pivoted away from being in the gym as a PT to being a mixture of online and in the park. That's to a large extent sort of washed out now. And
really?
We're certainly with personal trainers, we seem to be back to a healthy number of people wanting to work for us, and that's feeding through to give or take about the number of new PTs we want each month. So that to some extent that's washed out. The city's still rebounding though. I mean the amount of office space in London still isn't back to where it was. Certainly, I'm certain that's the same in LA, as I imagine it.
Well, I know in New York they seem to have this, and when I was there last time anyway, this 3 days. So where it used to be Monday, Fridays, it tends to be the traffic is people are coming in on a Tuesday and going out on a Thursday now. So it's
that's called the twats, aren't they?
Twats.
The Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. Yeah.
I like that.
That's what. We're definitely seeing a bit of that. Absolutely, no question. And that makes providing value. You like that one, yeah? I thought that was a common language. No, just a London.
Maybe it's a London thing, yeah.
So it becomes making. Each visit then becomes more valuable, because I don't know, if the member was in 5 days a week before and now they're only in the city 3 days, it's by definition they're getting less value. So it can become a more difficult decision. Our strategy has been to really focus on residents near the clubs we've got, and by and large we've got a lot of residents in each of our locations anyway, and that's how we've, if you like, bridge that gap. But the health club industry generally is, I guess, it's really challenging because of how much extra it's costing the operators to run the clubs because of the end.
And you guys got pools as well, and is that right, most of them?
Yeah, we've done have a pool in Mayfair or Moorgate, but everywhere else. So it costs a lot more to run the clubs than it used to. About 2, maybe 2.5 times more on energy costs than pre-pandemic, which is, I think, which is a big increase. To a large extent, we've been able to absorb that through price, but lots of our I wouldn't even say competitors, but lots of operators haven't been able to. You know, if I put myself in the shoes of, you know, leisure centres that have enormous pools, and you know they just don't have the margins. So you know, I fear we'll see some closures as a result of that. We're not quite in that. We're just not in that market, Matt, if I'm honest. So you know, there are some operators that will have taken a decision to close their jacuzzis down, for example, to save costs. You know, there's just no way we would or could do that. So our sort of only response to this is to build even better facilities, have even better service, charge a little bit more, and sort of carry on. And it's early days, of course, because we're only, you know, where we near the end of February now as we're chatting, but so far so good. You know, we're not seeing huge ramifications of it.
What about when you've come back from the pandemic? I know a lot of operators that I've been speaking to said there was quite a shift in terms of what the members came back wanting. You know, certainly men and women, particularly women now, a lot more in, you know, looking for squat racks in the free weight areas, a lot of glute training. Are you seeing in London the requests for different things, and have you had to change some of the things that you're doing on the gym floor to accommodate maybe some different sort of needs from your members?
Yeah, I don't think that, you know, the increase in females wanting to lift. I'm not sure that, at least from my perspective, that was linked to the pandemic. We were seeing that before then. Yeah, basically for us, every time we put in a new rack, an extra rack, it's a bit like putting a lane on the motorway. Very quickly it's just filled up. To some extent, you could, you know, I think in Canary Wharf, and we used Escape for part of this. We turned our basketball court into a yard with 12 racks, and or you know, now we'll still get members saying there aren't enough racks. So it's no, lifting generally has definitely become more popular, particularly in females. You know, there was a time, you know, when you and I first started in the industry, you just didn't see females in free weights areas, and yeah, if they were, they probably weren't squatting and deadlifting and Olympic lifting. So we're you know, that and it's I mean, thank God that's changed. So we have to put a lot more floor space in now for what we call strength and conditioning areas for certain. And what that's resulted in is less space for, let's call it pin loaded, but also like cardiovascular equipment. And you know, if I even go, but I think that journey's been maybe not linear, but that journey's been happening. I can remember joining David Lloyd in 2007, working with yourself and Matt Morton, Escape, and basically going, right, how can we work together, help me transform these gyms so we've got more functional space so we can move and lift, you know, and that was then. So it's not like this has been a new thing. Slowly but surely, gyms and health clubs have given up space that used to be, you know, rows and rows and rows of pin loaded and cardiovascular equipment for strength and conditioning areas, sled tracks, you know, a lot of the things I'm seeing here in the innovation center, and you know, that's a good thing, because it's a more inspiring environment to work within. And I believe that free weights, kettlebells, pushing a sled, I think that gives the members something different. They feel more in control and empowered by those kind of movements than, I don't know, sitting on a pin-loaded shoulder press and just moving it up and down.
Right.
So it's
yeah. Prediction's a tough word, but where are you, and you must be looking at this all the time, but like, where do you think for the next 5 years, how will that sort of gym floor space change, if at all? Like we talked about a few things, you know, the IV areas and that sort of stuff, but you know, in terms of fitness and recovery, what are some of the things that you think we'll start to see more of that we're not quite seeing as much of now?
Yeah, I know we've touched on this already. I think we as an industry and we Third Space are going to have to pay more attention to rest and recovery, and everything from sleep pods to whatever else it might be to Normatec sleeves. So I think we're going to see an increased amount of space dedicated to that sort of thing. I think the advent of things like high rocks, run-in races, we're certainly seeing in London a lot more members wanting to compete, in events, and we're having to tailor our gyms to accommodate that, and which can be everything from how do you design your rig to where you put your sled track, and do you need to give up some extra space to allow X competition to take place. So I think, and those two things are almost opposite, aren't they? So but they're also linked, because that to some extent, the harder you train, the more competitive you are, the more performance you want, the more you do need to recover and do those other things. Mm-hmm. So they seem like opposite things, but they're actually, if you're going to do one, you need the other. Otherwise, the weak link in the chain is the recovery. Mm-hmm. So that the prediction is difficult, but I don't think you'd need to be a genius to think through that those things are going to continue to be a trend.
Right. And what about models themselves? So if you think of again, I'll stick to London because you sort of know that best, but what do you think is going to be the evolution of, because there's now quite a few of the low cost, there's still the boutiques that are there, and then you guys are sort of sitting there at the super premium. Like, do you think there's going to be any changes to how the models in London evolve at all? I'll give you one example. Like, we started to see a few of these, and it's not totally new, and people have been doing this for quite a while in some areas, but you're now sort of getting the segmentation of boutiques within clubs now. So you've got, I was in the LA Fitness one a few weeks ago, where you've got a cycling boutique, a HIIT boutique, a recovery, a Pilates, all under one roof, and then and also a big functional strength and conditioning area. Yeah. So that was a club similar to, I suppose, in some ways you guys do kind of do that. Midtown kind of do that, but what are your thoughts on some of those new ideas?
Yeah, look, I expect we're going to continue to see mid-market squeezed. That's I wouldn't want to personally be in that space. Boutiques have, particularly in London, I don't know what it's been like so much in New York and LA, have struggled post-pandemic, because that's purely a function of bums on seats, and if you don't have the office workers in, that's challenging. And I think I like Emma Barry's sort of take on this, which is you have to be really, really good to survive. So I think we are going to see some more consolidation. I think we're going to see, not saying less studios, but I think we're going to see less operators, and the not so good ones are going to get swallowed up by the great ones. And hopefully we'll be on the plus side of that. For us, we're obviously at the premium luxury end, and we feel there's a huge opportunity in that area, and we're well positioned to, if you like, take advantage of the Londoners that really, really care about their health and well-being. And I think I don't see that going away. There's even people in their late 20s, early 30s who maybe aren't earning the incomes that you would think you would need to earn to justify a luxury membership. That's where they're spending their disposable income. They're not going out 3 times a week drinking. They're maybe even not buying a car or even saving for a house, because why bother? You can't buy one anyway. So there's this, you know what I mean? They may be investing their money more in experiences and their health and well-being. So there's definitely in a good way, a disproportionate amount of income being spent by a section of people on their health and well-being and on their gym membership. And we've got members that will, pay their Third Space membership, have a Whoop band, wear the latest clothing, and also have, I don't know, a pack of 10 at Soul Cycle. Yeah, it's not. It's if you're really, really into your fitness, and that's the thing you do. I think we're going to see more and more of that. You know, real enthusiasts that the industry, need to cater for.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see increased premiumization. That's what I think. But
yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
And it makes sense that premium, in some people, it's also rediverting priorities. As I said, you know, the car,
that's what I'm alluding.
The restaurants.
That's what I'm alluding to.
Yeah.
It would seem absurd to me that, you know, obviously because I work for Third Space, you know, my membership's part of the package. But you know, I'm still paying my CrossFit membership where I live, which is another £100 a month, and I'm only really going twice a week because I'm in Third Space. But what's the alternative? Not being able to train twice a week or go into the budget gym that's near, which that's just not what I want to do. So I think if you're really into it, Matt, you'll pay for it. And I don't know about you, but you know, I drink a lot less than I used to. I don't because you don't when you're a bit older. I don't really spend the money I used to spend on clothes because I kind of maybe don't care quite as much about that now. So it's, well, where else are you going to spend it?
Yeah.
Traveling and health and well-being. I think a lot of people are kind of warm into that.
So my final question then, Rob. Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you believed is impossible and gone to make it possible. What would be a recent example of you escaping your own personal limits?
I knew this question was coming because of look, the best answer to that, Matt, is, you know, when I was 18, you know, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I'd come out of school with a few GCSEs, quite shy, skinny kid, and fortunately I found the gym, and that transformed me physically and, if you like, psychologically, mentally, spiritually. And obviously off the back of that, I've been came down to London in my Ford Sierra in 2002.
Sierra.
And
what was it, 1.6?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And started in Holmes Place, Crouch End in North London as a gym instructor. So what's that, 20 years? And I probably don't need two hands to count the number of days I've woke up since then and not been really enthused about what I do. So, you know, that for me has been the, you know, just the gift, really. It's just been, thus far anyway, you know, an amazing career to be in, an amazing industry to be in. So, you know, I never really believed when I was that 18-year-old kid in Swansea that I could have had that life, if you like. So for me, you know, growing up in a great family environment, but a very simple one and a working class one, kind of in a council estate in Swansea, and being able to have had the career and life I've had so far, that was me kind of coming to London. That's my version of escaping my limits, I suppose. So yeah, that's
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to sort of catching up again. I'll have to come and check out one of your clubs.
Oh, please do.
I'm out of touch a little bit with it all, but and I made a note. I need to probably re-engage a personal trainer to push myself, and then we'll have a workout together afterwards.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much, Rob. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks. Good stuff.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you've got any value from it whatsoever, then please do us a favor, like, subscribe, tell somebody, and that will help us to be able to continue to do more of these and help you escape your own personal limits. Thanks for listening.